we got bad tackles, we got bad lights, and we got one badass goal.
That's what a goal!
All this and more, and this quarterfinals leg 1 review show. Yes, people, welcome back to JPL Fan. The first leg of the quarterfinals are finally in the books, and we have the reviewed action right here. Of course, we have to start with the match that took place over 2 days as if it was a cricket game. In terms of the starting lineup for Tivoli, it was your typical Jerome lineup. The likes of Nicola Folio, Anthony Nelson, and Alton Lewis all started, and of course, Stephen Clark came in for the suspended Lennox Russell. As for the Montego Bay United team, Teagat Davis went with a 4-prong attack of Chanel Thomas, Jardine Fletcher, Wayne Garden, and Jan Weatherly. He also decided to have Demari Phillips' partner Lucas Lima in the middle of the park. Now, when the games get started, it was clear as day that what Jerome Waite had planned for Mobay as they came up pressing from the whistle was blown. They were off at 100 miles per hour, and Mobay was having a tough time to come to grips with the speed and pressing of the men in Tangerine. Tivoli would get the first shot on target by any team. It came from a free kick, of course, from Fuller, but it was an easy save for Burton in goal. No, Mobay were adamant that they will play through the press, and they did on this one occasion right here, when Trimingham decided to split the lines with this pass and find his captain, who decided to take a snapshot, but it was nowhere near the close to goal. But this is where things were getting fascinating. Both teams were stubborn in their style, and Mobay kept to their style and tried to play through the press. And on this major occasion, it kinda worked. Jan Weatherly got freed on the right hand side before he played a delightful ball to the back post for Jordan Fletcher, who decided to take the ball down instead of attacking it. But when he finally got his shot off, Alton Lewis slid in and got it out for safety. But such a move was doing wonders for Mobay's confidence that they can indeed play through the press. But that did not deter Tivoli. They played their own style, of course, and they were winning the second ball and had a major opportunity of their own when Fuller did some great work down here on the left-hand side before he played in a delightful low square into the box for the arriving Steve Clark. But Burton did just enough to make sure it didn't go back in the back of the net. So it remained 0-0, and both teams had ample time to catch their breath as the game's flow was broken often because of 1 or 2 fouls. And the last time the game was interrupted was most damaging, of course. Half the stadium lights did not turn on, and the referee decided to interrupt the game and call back everybody the next day. So in a bizarre twist of fate, the game would have resumed on 35 minutes in an all-new venue at the Stadium East, and both teams, well, basically just used the last 10 minutes of that first half to basically warm up. Although they did get one big chance at the goal, a header from the corner right here, but it was neatly tipped over just in time. The halftime break would come with both teams remaining 0-0. But the second half is where all the action will finally take place. Tivoli got things off and running once again with another Fuller free kick just in the 46th minute, but again it was nothing too damaging for Mobay. But Tivoli was still pressing while Mobay was gaining more and more confidence that they can indeed beat the press. And they were gaining more confidence. The likes of Lucas Lima and Demari Phillips were having more footholds in the game, but it was all Jordan Fletcher that was really carrying them forward, especially when he was being a good point forward, and he especially came good when he had to stretch the field. But you know, when it comes to these playoffs, you just have to have a controversial moment, and a big one occurred in roughly the 56th minute. Demari Phillips went chasing off a loose ball, and then went into a crunching tackle, and Anthony Nelson that somehow was not even given as a foul. The entire Tivoli bench was not happy, the entire Tivoli fans in the stadium was not happy, and when you look at the replay once more, they absolutely were right to be upset. That was a clear red card as I ever seen one, and I'm absolutely shocked that if the center ref missed it, that neither the fourth official or his assistants saw it for them to communicate to the ref, and a red card should have been shown. Luckily, Anthony Nelson was able to shrug it off, but it was clear the Tivoli players were still thinking about that challenge when Stephen Clark drew a foul right here on Wayne Garden, and to add insult to injury, he was given a yellow card for this one. But when Owen Garden lined up his free kick, I don't think anybody was actually worried that anything would come of it. But when he swung in his ball and he went on target, we were all shocked to see it float over Clark's head and into the back of the net. 1-0 to Montego, and literally it kind of came out of nowhere. Another goalkeeping error for the Tivoli Guns team, and this is despite them changing keepers 1 and 2 times now. Tivoli, of course, no upset about the challenge and the goal they give it up, had their blood boiling, and then things got even more heated when Phillips again had a coming together with Fuller, and that caused the bench to, of course, erupt once again. A bit of a scuffle occurred, but luckily nobody got a red card. But it could be clearly seen Tivoli heads were elsewhere as the game progressed after this. I mean, Fuller exacted some revenge right here on Johan Weatherly that could have easily been a red card as well. And right after that, they forgot their own defensive shape and was leaving Weatherly to more space down the right hand side. Him and Chanel Thomas will link up right here, and after Clark went on a walkabout, the goal was empty and Phillips did well to get it on target, but Alton Lewis outstretched leg protected his goal and his keeper right on the line. A very close call for Montego, but that should have been a wake-up call for Tivoli. But the best cure to any football team's ailment is of course a goal, and they will get one basically out of nowhere. After all that nice build-up play they would have exerted at Sabina Park the night before, Route 1 would be the key to unlocking Montego. Ball played up to Anthony Nelson, who did absolutely well to knock it off one time to Rashawn Ovill, who wasted no time to hammer Daisy Cutter straight past Burton into the back of the net. 1-1, and it would have been just what Jerome Waite would have wanted to get his troops heads back into the game. In fact, momentum was clearly on their side as well as confidence as their tempo went up another notch, and at this moment, Montego Bay United was reeling and just trying to survive. Tivoli always made their dominance count in this period with his Fuller free kick, but Burn did well to get down low to his right and pry it out to safety. But it was clear Tivoli had their tails up. Prior to the goal that Tivoli scored, Tiga Davis actually made a bizarre change when he took off the influential Lucas Lima and put on Leonardo Rankin in the middle of the park as he looked to now push the Murphys further up the pitch. That move tells me that he was hoping to get the second goal before the end of the day, and eventually they would settle things down and wrestle back control of the match. But you still have to be wondering where did the second goal will be coming from, and of course it came from a move that came down the right again. After the ball was floated in by Chanel Thomas, Tivoli Garden absolutely failed to clear their box before it floated in the air for the Brazilian Ferreira, who tried the spectacular, but he got it to ping around in the box for a bit before Rankin decided not to be selfish and find an unmarked Jordan Fletcher at the top of the 6-yard box to knock it home to give Montego a very late lead in this contest. 2-1, and the small entourage of Montego fans erupted with fist pumps in the air. Tivoli, though, for their credit, was trying their best to come back in the game. They tried their best to up the tempo once again, and apart from this last-minute kick from Fuller, they did not get enough strikes at goal to try to get an equalizer before time ran out. The whistle would be blown, and Montego would draw first blood in the first leg. So at parts it was an even game, but Montego edged it out in the end. How was the game turned out start? While Tivoli had more attempts overall with 11 compared to Montego Bay's 9, Tivoli managed 5 on target compared to the team from West 4. 14 fouls to Tivoli Guns, 13 to Montego Bay, as apart from the 1 and 2 scuffles and that really bad challenge, it wasn't really a nasty game. 1 yellow card to Tivoli, 2 yellow cards to Montego, and no red cards in the game, which again should not be so. Tivoli only had 40% of possession, while Montego managed to have 60 despite the ongoing pressing from Tivoli. Alright, let's start with Montego Bay first. I have to give credit to Paul Tiga Davis here. He had a belief on how he wants to play, and despite Jerome Wade's team keep coming at them, they decide they're going to stick to how they want to do it. I felt that Jordan Fletcher was the man of the match. He was immense, but I have to give credit as well to Chanel Thomas, who did well when he had to float over to the right hand side. But I'm still at to ponder if it was the right move to take out Lucas Lima at that point in the game when he did it. Alright, as for Tivoli Gardens, well, they will feel that they're not out of this contest just yet, but they'll probably be a bit disappointed that basically 2 goals came from some poor defensive errors. And of course, they will absolutely feel cheated that was not a red card given to Phillips before the goal was even scored, and they probably felt that they should have responded a bit better with cooler heads after the scuffle that happened after the goal. But these are learning curves, and as I said to you, they're still in the contest, and they got to believe that they can get something out of this tie. But anyway, once again, this quarterfinal ended Tivoli Gardens 1, Montego Bay United 2. So we now move on to our next quarterfinal match that saw Portmore United taking on Cavalier. In terms of the starting lineup for Portmore United, well, coach Rudolph Austin made a surprise move. he went away from his usual back three and switched to a 4-4-2 formation. We saw an usual striking partnership of Guthrie and Brown up front, and they were flanked by Benbow and Robinson on the wings. As for Cavalier, they have their own striking issues, as both Justin Dunn and Shaquille Stein were out with injuries, so he made a bold move of having Dwayne Busy Atkinson as a false number 9, and also had a first-time trio of Watson, Reed and Dwayne Allen. Now, when the game kicked off, Cavalier started slightly better. They will come ahead quickly with here by Calvin, but he couldn't get a clean shot on target. Portmore will respond with a good shot of their own, this time by Brown, but his curling effort just went over the bar. After that, we saw a little bit of a slow in tempo, but Cavalier would come again and cause some trouble, this time for a set piece into the box, and after the ball rumbled around a bit, it was finally cleared off for safety. But after that, Portmore settled down and they became the much better team going forward. They were especially lethal down the wings, as you can see right here, where they teed up with good effort to the top of the box for Rose that went just over, and then they would carve up Cavalier once again down that same right hand side. That saw the ball ended up with Bembo in the box, and after he danced and swiveled a bit, his shot was a bit too wayward, but encouraging signs for Portmore. On the Cavalier side of things, they really just couldn't get a foothold of the ball. Watson playing to eye up was doing his best to try to retain the ball, but it simply was just not working. Portmore on the other hand just kept coming at Cavalier. They would even try on Ainsworth's side, with Zimmerman get a lot of pressure to come forward and teed up some rasping shots that could have even led to a 1 and 2 penalties. But we have seen this from Portmore before. When they're on top, they just don't seem to strike. But lucky for them, that will change this time. Some excellent work by Guthrie to keep the ball alive, to find Bembo down the left again, and he would try teed up to the top of the D, which should have been taken care of by Adrian Reed, but he lost concentration at the worst time, and the ball just fell kindly to Robbie Robinson, who would make this rocket off the shot, and it went past Barkley and into the back of the net. One love, I was absolutely deserved based on how Portmore started the match. But as good as a 1-goal lead is, this is Cavalier we're speaking of, who have a knack of scoring out of nowhere, so you have to finish them off when you get the chance. And oh boy, did Portmore get a big one right here, moments after that initial goal. Some great work again by Mullins to carve through down the right hand side into the box before teeing up Brown right in front of goal, but his missed touch gave Barkley a big chance to make the save. A massive chance missed by Portmore, and again, they would have to hope it don't come up and bite them. Well, not too long after that, it did, and you could say it came in typical Cavalier fashion. First, it was absolutely great work by Busy Atkinson taking on 3 defenders to draw the corner, and then from the ensuing corner, the ball was played near post and McCleary reached it first and put on a glancing header into the back of the net. 1-1, I just felt that Cavalier pulled this rabbit out of his hat out of nowhere. From there, the game kind of changed a bit. Cavalier finally got some more confidence, and they don't finally seen their usual style of play of even winning some of the second balls, and they were now looking like their more usual selves. They should have even got the go-ahead goal right before halftime break. Ainsworth putting a delightful ball into the box, and Atkinson got a free header, but he managed to put it over the bar. A massive miss for the small footballer. After that, both teams will be a bit reserved, and the scores will remain equal going into the halftime break. Second half now, and Portmore made the interesting choice to sit back a bit and invite the pressure from Cavalier. So Cavalier finally got what they would be seeking all game long, a good distinct spell of possession, and to practically camp out in Portmore's half. It even led to them getting a free kick early on, and Richard King did well to put this curling effort on target, but the keeper did well to keep it out of safety. But this will be the same pattern of play that we will see for the majority of the second half. Cavalier will be awarded space and time to make their build-up play, and eventually they will find a way to the top of the 18 before Portmore will do enough to close the banks and draw fouls, which of course Cavalier didn't do enough to really get anything else on target. But Portmore would weather the storm, and eventually Rudolph Austin would have made some moves to freshen up the leg up front, and then Portmore will find himself in Cavalier final third again. But they themselves never had no massive opportunities until roughly near the end of the game, where a flurry of set pieces caused Cavalier some major trouble. But Vina Bartlett and his defense managed to hold out. But the champs are still champs for a reason, and they still have a knockout final goal out of nowhere, and they almost did in the dying moments. Some brilliant work down here from the right hand side, saw a good ball played into the box towards the back post, The keeper was beaten and Busy did well to get a foot on it, but he managed to get it just over the bar in the 6-yard box. A massive miss again by the Pintside player and a big let-off for Portmore and their fans. That would have been the last major action of the game, as this first leg would have ended 1-1. So you can say on the balance of play by both halves, it was an equal game, but how was the game in terms of stats? Alright, Portmore had more attempts with 10 shots in total compared to Cavalier's 8. Only 2 on target for Portmore, as I said, majority of those came in the first half, and Cavalier themselves only managed 3 on target. There were 2 yellow cards apiece for both teams, no red cards, and in terms of possession, Portmore ended up with more at 55% compared to Cavalier's 45%. Alright, let's start with Portmore United first. That first half, or at least the first 25 minutes of this match, is some of the best football I've seen Portmore play all season long, and they should be kicking themselves that they only got 1 goal out of it. Also should be kicking themselves for the goal they let in. That was a really poor defensive work there on the near post, and overall, if they managed to go on to lose the tie on Monday, they really only have themselves to blame, as I felt Cavalier was really there for the taking. As for the Dunking Destroyers themselves, well, they can consider themselves a bit lucky because that first 25 minutes, as I said, they should have been put to the sword. But as usual, they just have a bit of resilience in this team and always find a way to just get goals and get back into a match. They grew into their own in the second half, but they really should have done better to get more shots on target. Well, in the end, once again, it ended Portmore United 1, Cavalier 1. So yeah, that was the exciting first leg of the quarterfinals out of the way. We'll turn our attention back to Sabina Park on Monday, and fingers crossed there will be no more light issues. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and please like, subscribe and share as we look to keep you all up to date on everything in the JPL leading up to the final in May. Otherwise, for great JPL content, you're already at the right place. JPL Fun. YouTube, big up yourself.